All right, here is the review for chapter 2. Some of this is off the top of your head stuff. A lot of it is right out of your reference table, so make sure you have your reference table handy. The first one is a straight off the top of your head one. What is the shape of the Earth? It is an oblate spheroid. An oblate spheroid just means it's a sphere, but it has a slightly bulging center, like the equator is a little bit fatter than it is tall. And the reason this is true is because of the rotation of Earth. So basically the spinning, just like if you spin pizza dough, it will flatten out and get bulgy in the center. The sphere of Earth that consists of gases, that's the atmosphere. Got to know that off the top of your head. And which sphere is solid? That's the lithosphere, which is also known as the crust. Which one is the ocean, lakes, and rivers? That's the hydrosphere. Hydro like hydrate, but hydro like fire hydrant, all have to do with water. What two layers are included in the lithosphere? So this, you do have to use your reference table to get this one. I'm just looking for a blank reference table. I guess I don't have one. If you remember, so when you get a question that's like kind of random off the top of your head, you can look through your reference table and find the word lithosphere. It's the crust and rigid mantle. So that's right in your reference table. Which layer from question 6, so this one, is on the comparison chart on the front of the reference table. So the front of the reference table, that's the crust and rigid mantle. There's no thing about the mantle, only the crust is listed there. And this is all, the rest of this page is from ESRT page 1. So which elements listed in the composition table are present in the Earth's crust by just over 2% by mass? So Earth's crust by mass, just over 2%, that would be 2 points, these three right here, just over 2. So that's potassium, magnesium, and sodium. You can either write that out or use the abbreviation. Just know that if they do use the abbreviation, that you are responsible for, like if they say K, you need to check this out. K is potassium. If they say potassium, that's abbreviated K. It's all right there. They'll not expect you to know that off the top of your head. Which ones are by volume? Approximately 0.5 by volume. None of them are perfectly what is this? I'm sorry. Which two elements listed in the composition are present in the Earth's crust by approximately 0.5% by volume? Oh, these two right here. That's almost 0.5 and that's almost 0.5. So aluminum and iron. All right, draw and label the elements by percent found in each of the following spheres. So the troposphere, there's only 3 things, thank goodness. So there is 21%. So here's 0, here's 21. This is oxygen. Now you could do this a couple ways if you wanted to count out 78 of these, or the easiest thing to do is say there's only 1% other. The rest should be 78% nitrogen. So that's one way of doing it. It is pretty easy. So let's do it the same way for hydrosphere. So again, we got 33% for oxygen. Here's 30, 31, 32, 33. Connect that up. So this is oxygen. We've got 1% other. And then the rest is hydrogen. No math required. All right, which layer of the atmosphere contains the water vapor? So now we're talking about the atmosphere. And you should remember that there is an atmosphere reference table. And where is all the water vapor? That's in the bottom layer, which is the troposphere. The boundary located 50 miles above sea level. So be careful that they said miles. 50 kilometers is a completely different answer. So they said 50 miles. So that's on this side. 50 miles is the mesopause. Now make sure you write pause and not sphere because the mesosphere is something different. Where is the pressure of the atmosphere the greatest? So pressure's on the x-axis. So we want the line farthest over on the x, and that is, it does say where is the pressure? So that would be at sea level. You could have also written the troposphere would have been good. What's the approximate temperature at an altitude of 50 kilometers? So the kilometer side go up by tens, 10, 20, 30, 40. So here's 50. I want to know the temperature. So I go over till it hits the line. Read down, that's nicely labeled at 0 degrees Celsius. As altitude increases, so as we go higher up the y-axis, pressure goes from 0 at or 1 at the ground to 0 up in the air. So pressure decreases. And as altitude increases, water vapor also decreases. On to the back. What two factors determine the coordinate system? I think what I meant was to cross that off and say latitude and longitude. So you could actually skip that one if you wanted. What time is it when the sun is highest in the sky? That's what's called solar noon. How many degrees per hour does the Earth rotate? Remember, a full rotation is 360 degrees. So it takes 24 hours to make that 360. That gives us 15 degrees per hour. How many time zones are there? There are 24. If two people are on the same longitude line, what do they have in common? So remember, longitude lines are these up and down lines. They measure how far north or how far east or west of the prime meridian you are. The only thing they do have in common, though, will be their time. If you travel west, time becomes, so if you remember my saying, like the old west, it's earlier than we are right now. So time becomes earlier. If you go towards California, it's earlier in the day. They're 3 hours earlier than us. So if it's 10 here, 10 a.m. here, it's 7 a.m. in California. Name the star that is used as a reference point. That is Polaris or the North Star. They're the same star, just two different names. Where is the North Star located? Remember that altitude equals your latitude. So it is your north latitude. Why is the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn located at 23.5 degrees north and south? Remember, just from last chapter, that is the, how do I want to word this? That is as far north or south where the sun is directly overhead. And why is the Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle located at 66.5 degrees north and south? That's because those locations get 24 hours of darkness in the winter and 24 hours of daylight in the summer. What page in the reference table has latitudes and longitudes of New York State? That is page 3. What is located at 0 degrees latitude? That's the equator. And 0 degrees longitude, that's the prime meridian. What is the highest degree latitude? 90 north and 90 south. And the highest degree longitude is 180 degrees. Altitude of Polaris equals your latitude. Label the diagrams to the right as either latitude and longitude. Remember, latitude, flatitude, they're parallel. This one is latitude. Longitude lines meet at the poles. And we do need to remember how that the Big Dipper, these two stars are called the pointer stars. So there's the pointer stars, which point to the first star of the Little Dipper, and this is Polaris. You do need to know that. So Polaris is the first star of the handle of the Little Dipper. All right, circle the words. You don't have to rewrite them here. So contour lines never cross. If they're close together, that's a steep slope. If they're far apart, that's a gentle slope. They bend upstream, which means where it comes from. Upstream means uphill. Downstream means downhill, where it's going. So remember, they always point to where it comes from. And contour lines connect places of equal elevation. A map scale like this guy right here, that determines your distance. Contour interval, like right there, is describing how far up, what the lines go up by. Now here, if we have the highest contour line of 100, so let's say that line right there is 100. What is the highest possible elevation on the hill? So if that line's 100, that's not the highest this whole map could be. It could still be a little higher than 100, but it cannot be 120 if they're counting by 20s. Because if it was 120, then there would be a 120 line. So in that center of the hill, it could be anything between 100 and 120, but not 120. And the highest number in between there is 119. A benchmark labels an exact location. And streams always flow. The only thing you can say they always do is they flow downhill. Topographic map shows location X and Y. What is the contour interval? Well, it says right there, 20 feet. What's the distance between X and Y? So to figure out how far apart they are, you need a scrap sheet of paper. You take your scrap sheet of paper and line it up perfectly with X and Y. And you take that down to the map scale. Perfectly 2 miles. What's the difference in elevation? Well, if they go up by 20, that's 500, 520, 540, 560. So if X is 560 and Y is 500, how far apart, or what's the difference between the two of them? 60 feet. Then it asks you to calculate the gradient. Gradients. Remember, anytime you got to calculate, you have the formula on the front page of your reference table. Change in field value divided by distance. Well, we already know how the change, that's 60 feet. We already know the distance between the two of them, that's 2 miles. So that gives us 30 feet per mile. All right. So it's starting here. Which direction does Green River flow? So here's Green River. Now remember, these contour lines always point to where it comes from. So it's going that way, but coming from down here. And this means it's coming from the south or the southwest. Here's that highest possible elevation. So what is the highest contour line? The biggest line on here, the first highest one that's labeled is 400, but there's another line and I'm not sure what they go up by. So I got to check. If this line's 300 and that line's 400, could they be going up by tens? 300, 310, 320, 330, 340, 350. That didn't work. I need something bigger. 320, 340, 360, 380, 400. The lines are going up by 20. So this line right here is 420 feet. That's the highest line. But is that the highest elevation? No, anything in here could be bigger. How big could it be? It's not 440 because that would be the next line, but it can be anything less than that. And the highest number less than 340 is 339. All right, what's the difference between A and B? What's the difference in elevation? Well, A is 400, B is 300. So the difference is 100 feet. What's the distance between them? Again, I got to mark that off. So mark off how far apart they are. Bring that down to my scale. Those are 4 miles apart. Gradient, again, right off the reference table, is the change between the two of them. So that's 100 feet divided by how far apart they are. That's in miles. So 100 divided by 4 gives me 25 feet per mile. All right. So when you went ahead and did the same thing for the next one, I'm not going to go through all of that. The contour interval is 20 meters. Highest value is 400 meters. Highest possible elevation then is 419. They are 2 kilometers apart. Difference in elevation is 100 meters. So gradient is the change. So they change 100 meters and it takes 2 kilometers to change. It gives us 50 meters per kilometer. It is important that you pay attention to the units. If you have the wrong units on the regions, I have to mark it wrong. All right, the next one is a little bit different. Now we're asking you to do the profile. That's the side view. There's multiple steps. The first step is to label all the lines. They tell you that it goes up by 100. So if this is 3,000, that's 3,500. This line right here at A is 3,400. 3,300. Onward. This one's labeled 2,900, and be careful because this one is also 2,900. So you label all the lines. You grab your scrap sheet of paper. You line it up. You mark off A, you mark off B, and then you label 3,400, 1,300, 1,200, and just keep going. And yes, the 2,900 repeats. Once you have all your little marks, you bring that down to the graph paper situation. Line up A and B. A goes up to the 3,400 mark. Let's take this next line straight up to the 3,300. Do you have to draw these lines going up? You do not, but that makes sure that they're nice and directly above where they're supposed to be. Yes, again, this one repeats, and then you start connecting. But then you got to remember the final rule. If you have 2 of the same ones, the line either has to dip down for a valley or up for a hill. So we got to go check out, will this area in between here be a valley or a hill? And the way to check, so you got it kind of looking at this line, is that higher or lower than 2,900? Well, if this line's 2,900, this must be 2,800. So all of these areas on that line are below 2,900, but not all the way down to 2,800. So that makes it a valley. And yes, you do have to make sure those are very nice and neatly lined up. All right, now which way is Snapper Creek flowing? So again, remember they point to where it came from. So it's pointing north. It flows out of the V's, so it's flowing south. You could have also said southwest would have been good enough. Again, calculate your gradient, the change. When you go through and you do this, they change 500 feet. They are 1.7-ish miles apart. If you had that off a little bit, that would be okay. And I guess I need to do my math here. So plug this in, 500 divided by 1.7 gives me 294.1 feet per mile. Again, you always have to write the correct units. So again, you would have to go through all of those steps again. And here's what your profile would look like on the back. We've got the distance between them is 3. Change in elevation is 80. So 80 divided by 3 gives you 26.7 meters per kilometer. These are only going up by 10 meters. So the highest elevation was 350. So the highest possible elevation would be 359. So you go to what would have been the next line. So 360 and you subtract 1 to get the 359. All right, so going through the multiple choice rather quickly here. Altitude of Polaris is always equal to your latitude, answer 3. Again, altitude of Polaris is equal to your latitude, answer 2. So if you know that altitude of Polaris equals your latitude, so let's do this one. What is the approximate location of an observer if he measured the altitude of Polaris of 41 degrees? So we have to go to New York State map. Altitude of Polaris equals your latitude. So 41 is down here, down near New York City and Riverhead. Hopefully one of those two were the choice. New York City. Altitude of Polaris equals your latitude. So number 4 is 3. Altitude, so we go to 42 degrees on the map, and that's closest to all 3 of these. Which one is 42? That's slide mount. Again, altitude of Polaris is equal to your latitude. Number 6 is 1. And so if we go through the North Pole and the South Pole, that's going to give us a longitude of 0. Altitude of Polaris equals your latitude. So Polaris is there. So we're at 66.5 degrees north, number 2. Directly overhead is 90 degrees north. As we go north, that means our latitude goes from being 0 at the equator to 90 at the North Pole. That means our altitude of Polaris increases. And number 11, as a person travels due west. So you got to know what due west means. Due west means straight west. So what's not changing? Your latitude. And if your latitude doesn't change, then Polaris doesn't change. Number 12, 44 degrees would be closest to Watertown, answer 1, and 13 is 4. All right, we'll just wrap the rest of these up. So we have number 14 is 3, 15 is 2, 16, 1, 17, 2, 18, 2, 19, 1, 22, 21, 1, 22, 2, 23, 1, 24, 3, 25, 4, 26, 1, 27, 3, 28, 3, 29, 4, 31, 31, 3, 32 is 4. I apologize. Number 33 will never be on the test. And number 34, the answer is 1. And that's it for review of chapter 2. If you have any questions, just go ahead and message me or talk to me in person, whatever works best.